Welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of Chrysalis Effect. I am Monique White of Triumph Services, your host, and here in the Chrysalis Effect, we are transforming mind, money, and manifestations. Now, why mind, money, and manifestations, you may ask? Well, because entrepreneurship is a 360 holistic view encompassing your mind. Every action and inaction starts with a thought. And as you put in the work, as you work out those actions, the money will come and you will start to see the manifestations, the result of all your hard work. And we approach entrepreneurship, we approach life here in the Chrysalis Effect from a spiritual viewpoint. From a spiritual viewpoint. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And today we are going to continue our discussion with Susan McVea of Susan McVea Consulting, Inc. on the subject of intuitive sales.
The more you try to jam yourself to do the thing, the harder and harder and harder it gets, and the less results you're going to see. And then it's a virtuous circle in that it's like you get into this vicious cycle of try and fail and try and fail and try and fail, and you can't get out because now you're scared to keep trying because you know that you're going to keep failing. So you expect it to happen and you can't figure it out. And usually what it does is that it makes you so gun shy about doing anything that it's almost like you can't start. And that's, I mean, that's a shock response, right? Like when you get into an adrenaline response, it's freeze, flight, or flee. And a lot of times you do nothing because you're like, what do I do? Everything that I've done to this point isn't working. You almost lose sight of yourself. You can't hear your intuition. You can't really hear the signs. And you don't even know what it is that you want anymore. And I think instead of trying to bulldoze your way through, and I would say that there's a difference between pressing through and forcing through. Because when you do something new for the first time, right? When you see your little baby try to walk for the first time, they don't get it right? But they have fun while they're doing it because they know that at the end, and you know at the end, that our babies eventually will walk. It might take them a little bit longer. Everybody's on a different timeline. But if you don't enjoy the process and the journey along the way, you'll never get back up. And at the end of the day, what ends up happening is that we punish ourselves for the journey as business owners. We're like, the first sign of failure, that was so terrible. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And we beat ourselves up and we pummel ourselves. Well, no wonder why you don't want to keep going, right? If you're as mean to yourself as you would be, I mean, I want you to be as gentle to yourself as you would be to somebody else that you would be trying to teach this thing. Because anytime that we do something new, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to be different. It's going to be hard. Right. And I think sometimes we are so enamored with, the one thing and this top secret. And I do it because it sells, right? Like people are interested. Oh, what's that one thing? And I always say, really, this isn't the one thing. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And does one thing have more impact? Sure, it does. But the one thing for me might be different than the one thing for you. And the only way to know that is to trust yourself, but also to lean in and press through when it is uncomfortable. You need to have practiced something a few times in order to give it a chance, right? And I think sometimes we fail too early. We don't celebrate our failures. We're looking for quick wins that override the bigger win. And we don't always speak up and advocate for ourselves when something just absolutely doesn't align. And it's really important that when you know that you have to trust yourself first in order to create trust in a sales environment, because we all talk about know, like, and trust, but it starts first with you, right? And if you don't trust that you know what to do, if you don't trust that you can do it, if you don't trust that what you're doing is correct or the right fit for you, it doesn't matter if somebody else has made $1 million or $1 billion doing it. You simply won't do it right, and you won't get the level of success as a result. And you're going to be very defeated because, again, like I said about that whole cycle of fail and try and fail and try, you now have created a pattern of failure instead of a pattern of learning and improvement. And I love the Japanese concept of Kaizen, Kaizen, because it's about incremental improvements. And so they're always looking for continuous improvement. Mm-hmm. And the high tech field, so anybody who's comes from a more of a techie background, they do the same thing. They basically, the reason why high tech companies, nothing ever works properly. Hello, if anybody's on Clubhouse or any other tech platform, like, when was the last time Instagram went down? Well, it happens, right? And people complain and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Well, it's because they're constantly working on this concept of continuous improvement. They don't worry about it because they'll fix it. And I think too often when we are in business, when we are selling, we get so wrapped up in it has to be perfect every single time. And it doesn't. Give yourself space to improve, to learn, to allow for your intuition, to adjust, to pivot, to shift, and to really listen to what is it that would feel the most abundant, the most expansive, the easiest for you, knowing that we still have to put it in a container of it may be uncomfortable for right now because you're still learning this, but at least could it be as easy as possible for you for right now, right? Because it's gonna ebb and flow as you journey through, and as you get better, it will shift, and you'll look to yourself with a new standard and a new grace, and be able to adjust in a different way.
Right. That's awesome. That's so inspiring. You said two things that I want to delve into, though. First of which is, what would you say to, and you spoke a little bit about this just now, but to the person who says, I don't have any intuition. I don't know how to really center myself and get to that sensitivity that's needed. What would you say to that person?
I would say, okay, so we're going to do a quick exercise. I want you to think about a time where you didn't really think about something and it just happened anyways. Like you trust, and maybe like you trusted your gut. You reached out to somebody and they said, oh, I was just thinking of you. Or you randomly went to the store and there was your favorite thing on the on the counter. So anytime that you think about a synchronicity that just serendipitously happened, when you're thinking about somebody and there they appear, or there's an email for a product that you were thinking, wow, I needed to purchase that. Boom. That's your intuition. For me, they come from God. There are these little God winks or nudges that are sent out in direct correlation to your intention. And it's why we're so powerful, because what you focus on, what you create in your mind, you can literally create anything that you want out of thin air. But that being said, there's usually a work component attached to it. Now, not always, because sometimes the things that we want the least, they just suddenly appear, right? And you're like, where'd that come from? And I get a little spark of joy when I see those things, because it's like, oh, there's God sending me you're on the right track. And sometimes because you hear people, they're like, oh, I just manifested this or that. And there are these big things. And I know that, at least for me, when I first started this journey of really tapping into my intuition and hearing what God said, was, I don't think he talks to me. I didn't think I was highly intuitive. I'm very left brain, very logical. So I could just justify everything that I was doing with a logical piece, until I couldn't, until there were so many synchronicities that I just couldn't explain them all. And when you start actually paying attention to them and leaning into this, I guarantee you that you're going to start noticing. And that's where it comes from, is just like paying attention and having an awareness. Because the things that we want the most, we usually have the most attachment to. And just like in sales, when we are attached to an outcome, we get so tied to the how, the what, and the why, it leaves no room for error. And that means there's no room for intuition, for
Right.
God and magic and Holy Spirit, all the stuff, because it's like it can only come in through this one highway. Well, what
Mm-hmm.
if it's coming on a country road, taking the back track, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's right there in your mailbox, and you had no idea. But we get so attached to these things that we're trying and praying and hoping for, that when it doesn't show up, we get disappointed. But it could show up in a different way. I'll give you an example, because I think sometimes it's nice to hear stories. I had a client who was still at the very early stages of my business. She was still in her 9 to 5. She was a single mom, worked in a really high powered executive position in TV production. And she needed more money. That's one of the reasons why she was building her business on the side. And we were working through some stuff, and she had set a goal. I want to see $10,000. Like, my income goal is $10,000. Now, she didn't make it very specific. She just said, I'm setting an income goal. I want to see $10,000. I was like, okay, great. We were working on a launch for her course, and she was doing the work, right? Because we set the intention, we set the goal, and now we made a plan. We're going to go and do this thing. She had a great launch. It didn't make the $10,000. And she was like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to work. But during one of our calls, she sat down and she beaming, this giant bright smile and just shining from the inside out. And I said, how's your week? And she said, oh my gosh, Susan, you'll never believe what happened. I just got a $10,000 raise at work.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. And so if she had been so tied to the $10,000 had to come in from her business, that her launch wasn't a success because she didn't meet that goal, she still made thousands of dollars on her launch. So that was on top of that. And then she had set this intention, and it came in through a different way. Like, that was like ding, 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 ding. And I think sometimes she could have easily said, oh, that doesn't count. Well, guess what happens then? God's not going to send you more. If you are not cheerful, if you are not thankful, if you can't say thank you for what you just put out in the universe to say, this is what I want, and now you're just waiting for God to send it to you, and your intuition is going to still take the steps, because hear me out. I think too often when we're using intuition, when we're using prayer, when we're trying to manifest, we like journal and write, and then we just sit and do nothing. You can't just do, no. Faith without works is dead. We need to still put plans in motion and then be guided. Because when we see, oh, look, I could do it this way, or I could do it that way, be led by what you see in front of you, because you already know that you're making the plan and you're executing the plan regardless. And then it'll add that extra bit of extra secret sauce to make things happen faster for you.
Exactly. And that brings me to the second thing I wanted to delve into. You mentioned pressing, not forcing.
Yes.
And it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I just had a conversation earlier today with someone who was discussing her business and her vision, and she was asking a question, and it's a question that's been asked over and over again. And it came down to, what do you want? What do you see? Because you're asking people who the vision wasn't given to. And the reason you are asking again is because the answer that you're getting is not in alignment with what you have in your heart. So what is it that you see? What is the vision that you were given? And it's no disrespect to them over here. However, the vision wasn't given to them. So therefore, they can't tell you. They can't give you the answer. The vision was given to you. And the reason you're frustrated and you're batting your head against what all these people are saying is because it's, in your heart what you should do. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so let's talk about that. Pressing, the difference between pressing and forcing. What is that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I mean, we were just being led in this conversation, right? And
Mhm.
so, because I was curious as I was sitting here preparing, and part of my preparation always includes praying and inviting God to just use me as a messenger for whatever needs to be sent out to help more people. And right now, where I'm feeling led is so for me, the vision so I'm a visionary. I'm futuristic. I can see, and I think all of us can see a future version of ourselves, but we're usually scared to hold on to it. And whether that's a
Mhm.
vision that God has provided to you, or that you've seen a glimpse of, or other people may have seen of you, right? Because sometimes other people see in us what we can't see yet for
Mhm.
ourselves.
Yes.
And for me, that's how God speaks to all of us. Like I've identified that there's 7 languages that God speaks to me, and for a lot of folks there's more, but these are the 7 that he initially started using with me. And when I realized that if I just got into alignment with what I want, but also what God wants for me, that it became way easier to be obedient and to do the work that I needed to do. And that's where pressing through, because it is uncomfortable. I mean, you and I are talking right now about intuitive sales. And gosh, when I first started my business, it was all the corporate language. Like, yes, there was a bit of this flow and release and surrender, because that was part of the journey that I had to do in getting back to my health, and through God's
Mhm.
grace, having complete healing. But it wasn't really a conscious thought, if that makes sense. It was just something that I was passionate about, I was living, and so I was speaking about. And then as I got better and better, and that my logical brain, because it is me, started
Mhm.
taking over, I started compartmentalizing, and I kind of almost hid it away a little bit, even though it came out here and there. And so I realized that the more that I could just be fully myself, the more that I could just really embrace who I am. And again, this whole journey started because I didn't know who I am and whose I am.
Right.
And as I grew more confidence in that piece, then I really was able to understand that, because I'm going to tell you, Monique, me sharing more of my faith, me praying and prophesying over people, me being able to be more intuitive with my language and with the gifts, not just privately for clients who work with me, but with the greater world at large, to create a bigger movement and create a bigger mission. It is uncomfortable, but I have to press through, because there's more at stake than just me. And because I see the vision that other people see in me, that God has created for me, that I now see just a tiny glimpse of, it gives me courage to keep moving through. But
Mhm.
before, what I was doing, it was that I was forcing myself to do things. And I've been in business programs where I've forced myself to do things in the way that it's meant to be done. And it kills my spirit. Like, it sucks the life out of you. And you're just like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Instantly, I know now that if I'm being drained from something, and here's the thing, I mean, especially depending on where you are in your business, but when you're starting out, you probably are wearing all the hats. Sales is going to be the last thing that you let go of behind marketing. Sales is going to be the absolutely last thing that you let go of, more often than not, because especially if you are the face and the figure of your brand and your business, and you work closely with clients, either one-on-one or through programs that you support, they're going to want to talk to you in some way. They're going to want to know that there's some kind of relationship or a feel for you, right? And you for them. You're going to want to do that as well. And so it's usually why it's the last thing, and it's usually why it can be the most uncomfortable thing to do and to lean into. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that if you're being told the only way to sell is to do webinars, or the only way to sell is to get up on a stage, or the only way to sell is to grow a massive list in an audience, or to do TikTok videos and be like doing, the flossing I don't even know what the cool move is now because my kids laugh at me every time I try and do a dance.
Well, I can't help you on that. I'm sorry.
Right? Like there are a million ways to be successful in your business, and you don't have to force yourself to do anything that is not aligned to who you are and how you want to build that vision. But you will need to press through. You will need to push through. You will need to level up. And every level requires an up leveling of you energetically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, maybe even physically, depending on the nature of the work that you do. And so just know that our comfort zone is what keeps us safe, but it also keeps us stagnant. And it prevents growth, it prevents life. Because if we look at water, and pools of water, water is always moving in order to give life. And if a pool of water is stagnant, stuff starts to die in it. It gets brackish, it turns color, it stinks. And so just remember that our human bodies are 80% water. And so if we're not doing the same thing to continually grow and expand and move and change and evolve and push on and push through, then we are slowly, slowly dying. And it means that I think all of us, especially if you are a believer, if you are kingdom minded, that this becomes a lot easier when you know what the vision is for you and it matches the vision that God has for you. Because then you are supercharged, like on a bullet train
Yes.
to the end result. And for me, the unlocking happens through being obedient, being surrendered, having flow, being in alignment, tapping into your intuition, because that's for me the source of how God starts to speak to all of us, especially women. We're highly intuitive because we have those gut instincts. We have a spidey sense. Like when you know that your child is in danger and you can't explain it, that's your intuition. When you know that your kid is up to no good and yet you can't, they're not, you're not looking them eye to eye and you're like, I know what you're doing. And they're like, how do you know? That's your intuition. But that's how God speaks to all of us. And when we override that, again, I'm going to come back to what I shared before. We start telling ourselves, I don't trust me. I don't deserve to trust me. And as a result, it's hard for others to trust you. It's hard for you to show up as a trustworthy and confident human being who wants to do good in the world. And the more that you can recognize when you're being forced to do something that creates re-trauma, right? Unhealed trauma that needs to be healed. If you are being triggered, if you just simply do not have the skills, maybe you need to go and learn it. Maybe it's totally backwards from how you want to build your business. And I can't tell you how many clients come to me because people have told them this is the only way you'll be successful. And they've been bullied almost to tears. And if anybody does that, run the other way because there's no one way. There's your way, but your way can also change. And I want you to give yourself permission to do it your way and to allow yourself to learn and grow and to have fun because life is too short and we are never guaranteed anything else beyond today.
Right, right. As you're speaking, Jeremiah 29:11 came to
My
mind.
favorite.
For I know the things I have for you, plans, to prosper you, to give you hope and a future. And that was just resounding in my mind when you were saying that the process doesn't feel good. Transformation doesn't feel good, but in the process of entrepreneurialism, when we on the journey, it doesn't always feel good. We have those uncomfortable times as we work out the steps to achieve that vision, but it's there to prosper us. And when you don't, well, when you try to force things, as you said, and you fall out of alignment with that, when we start doubting the vision, we start doubting our own abilities, that's when you start breaking down. You mentioned, you had a breakdown about earlier in the conversation because the way that you were doing what people told you to do, but when you really start, and I think the basis of what you're talking about with intuition is that you got to do a self-assessment. It starts with you. It starts with you, and to listen. So I am so happy that you came and you broke all that down for everyone, and you shared your story. So I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for your transparency. I'm thankful for your gift and your willingness to share it. Any last words that you want to leave with the audience?
Oh, I mean, I think we covered off a lot, Monique. I mean,
No, we have to bring you back.
I was like,
It'll be
tell
Susan
me the
McVea,
juice.
part one, part two, part three.
What's happening here? I mean, for me, because here's the thing, because and I'm going to share this because I feel like there's going to be somebody on the call that's like, oh, what do I do if I'm like in transition? Because now what I really want to do to be in alignment and to sell, and it could be a product, it could be a service, it could be a complete different niche, it could be a different vehicle that you're trying, like the whole
Mm-hmm.
9 yards. It could be a complete different focus. And I say this because my evolution has been somewhat similar in that if you go on my website right now, it's all focused on sales. And aside from a few things here and there, and I talk about my faith, I talk about my journey, I talk about my story. God is wrapped in all of that if you have ears to hear it. But there are things that I've just recently created, like the 7 languages of God. That is not currently on my website. It is meant specifically for those that would be looking for it, right? And I just want to encourage you because you don't have to worry about leaning into an area that you're being led to. I would encourage you to do it, and don't get trapped in, oh my gosh, I have to redo my website. I need all new logos and branding photos and yada yada yadas. You don't need any of that, because I'm going to tell you that I've had, gosh, like almost 25% of my current audience has fully embraced, if not more. It's probably one of the fastest growing segments of the people connected to me want to lean in more about how to hear God, how to use intuition, how to be more tapped into themselves and to create more peace. Yes, profits as well, because we're business owners, but there's some folks that I'm being led to help who aren't business owners at all, at least not yet. And they may never be, and that's okay. But they want to know who they are. They want to know whose they are. And if I worried about, oh my gosh, I have to change all my messaging and my website and have it all done, I would have missed out on an opportunity to help now, gosh, like thousands of people that I've spoken to just on this subject in the span of 6 months. And if I had waited, because I thought, and I did, Monique, I thought, somebody's going to call me out, because at the time I hadn't found a church yet. I was still seeking and looking, and I couldn't find one that fit. So I hadn't been going to church. I felt like I was a bad, Christian. I grew up Catholic, and who am I to teach on these supernatural things? I'm not ordained. I'm not certified. I haven't gone to school for this. Like, no, I don't want to do this. And sometimes when you are called, when you are being led, when you can't explain the thing, you just have to go and jump in and do it and take that leap of faith. And if that calls to you right now, I just encourage you, because I'm doing it in an area where traditionally, and I'm coming after all the clients that have ever worked with me and said, but Susan, it's so easy for you because you teach on sales. You help people make more money. So of course they want to work with you. And yet I've had people pay me already thousands of dollars to learn about their intuition and learn about God.
Right.
That has nothing to do with making money. Not really. I'm not teaching them business strategy. We're not talking about sales tactics. None of that. It's talking about joy, permission to play, permission to pray, do it your own way, that you don't have to go to church if you don't want to. This is not about religion. This is about choosing yourself. And I just want to encourage you. I know this, kind of feels maybe a little bit nebulous when we're talking about intuition and intuitive sales and business, but I think life is too short for you to build a jail, because that's what I was starting to create, right? I was starting to create a JOB that became a JAIL. and I would have had another breakdown. I was going down that path, and I quickly stopped myself. And it took me a long time. It took me, gosh, this is year 4 from when that first moment happened where I had yet another come to Jesus and I had to surrender again because I started taking over. And I just want you to know that you can do anything that you want to. You can't do all the things at the same time, but you can do anything that you want to. And if there is something that's calling to you right now, why not give yourself a chance? Because your business and your life should be filled, I believe, with as much joy as possible. It will be hard, but it should still be filled with peace and with ease, with mercy and with grace.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Susan, where can they find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me pretty much on all social media platforms at Susan McVea. Instagram is probably going to be the best one for us to just chit chat back and forth. So send me a message on Instagram. If you want any of the resources that might help you with sales, feel free to go and grab that off of my website, susanmcvea.com. I have a podcast, Master the Sales Game, where I talk about sales. So if you're looking for that in your business, feel free to do that. And then because I mentioned the 7 languages of God, that's a free resource that might be helpful for those that are looking to tap into more how God speaks to you. And you can grab that at 7languagesofgod.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. This has been Chrysalis Effect. I am Monique White. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye. At Triumph Services LLC, we believe that you don't have to live broke, busted, and disgusted. You don't have to stay stuck and stagnant. You were created for more. Call today to learn how at 301-259-1623. That number again is 301-259-1623.